Hello, Clarice. Hello, Adam. How's it going? We're talking Clarice 2021. Adam, this is a pretty interesting show. What did you think about Clarice? Just getting into it a little bit. And what were your first reactions?
So, opening scene, if we're talking about first reaction, she's in this, she's talking to her therapist. And it really kind of establishes the fact that she's still kind of working through the whole Buffalo Bill thing from Silence
Yeah.
of the Lambs. And she's still working because she don't want to slow down, but her therapist is like really poking at her, trying to get her to admit, you haven't moved on yet. It's
Yeah,
kind of
and her
interesting.
therapist was pretty much spot on, which I assume the show meant for that to be because he even made comments about how she was deflecting. So for those who are joining in, so this is a brand new series. CBS has been promoting the hell out of it ever since Super Bowl and before that. It looks like it's going to be a 10-episode streak. Adam and I gave this a shot just to see. My wife had been saying, "Hey, you may want to check this show out. It looks kind of good." And it's definitely more of that like that crime drama show versus like a thriller. I mean, there's like some small thriller
I
moments
agree.
maybe, um, but yeah, comparing it back to Jodie Foster and the Silence of the Lambs, this Clarice is doing a pretty decent job. I feel that they're pretty much connected on where she needs to be. But like Adam was mentioning, it's more kind of hitting on like the psychological effects because the last time we left off with Clarice, at the end of Silence of the Lambs, at least for that matter, she had that big ceremony, and they were all commemorating her for what she did, which pretty much was finding Catherine and killing Buffalo Bill. But now it's almost like she's kind of like the I don't know, the black hen. Like no one really likes her, no one really wants to work with her because they just don't understand what she's going through. Because let's face it, how often do you actually go through a life traumatizing thing like she did? It's pretty rough.
I mean, I guess to be perfectly honest with you, as a man, I don't know exactly what this is like. As somebody who's seen, I think if you're watching Silence of the Lambs though, and you see Jodie Foster's Clarice go through the whole thing, probably the bystander is thinking, well, she's going to have a lot of respect. But what's interesting is, one of the men she ends up working for later in the series, the character's name's
Oh yeah.
Paul Krender, just has like absolutely no respect for her. Thinks it was lucky, and it seems, like I said, it seems a little
Yes.
off to me. But like, I don't know, is sexism? Maybe sexism is really that big, and maybe that does happen to women who are that good at their jobs. But to me, it just seemed like a little out of
So
place. But
they
maybe I'm
played
wrong.
off that a little bit in the first Silence of the Lambs movie. So from the beginning, when they show Clarice running through this obstacle course, all the guys are kind of like gawking at her and looking at her. Not so much like checking her out, but
Yeah,
there's one scene where she kind of goes by with her friend Ardelia, and they're going over their arithmetic and their things for like one of the classes, and a couple of the guys run by and they just kind of shake their head, and it's just kind of. I mean, you can definitely tell there was that sexism feeling, and
yeah,
I think the movie was trying to portray that because that's probably how it was. There weren't very many women in the field. Now this one, again, it's there. They do it a little differently, and because although they're trying to portray the '90s, I have to admit I wasn't really feeling it. It's
sure,
not to down the show. It's hard to pull off those
yeah.
time periods, but yeah, like you said, Paul is very one-sided against Clarice in this episode. He was actually in the first movie. I found out. Now, obviously, it's not Michael Cudlitz, which, by the way, amazing actor. So glad they got him in on this one. But it was a bald gentleman, and he was part of one of the raid crews that was searching for Buffalo Bill. So there was a comment in the
Hmm.
episode where they're like, when you basically when you showed up, Paul, and you didn't show up or whatever, and you went off on your own, I guess, to do your interviews. So basically, meaning she should have included him, and that way the team would have been there, and then she wouldn't have gone through everything she went through. But who knows what would happen then? Would Jamie Gunn, which was Buffalo Bill, would he have killed Catherine? Would he have killed him? So I mean, it could have gone a whole different route.
Yeah,
So, but either way, like you said, there's a lot of angst there, and you can totally tell he's like, you'll say, so basically, there's another set of killings that's going on, and then so Senator Ruth Martin is called specifically for Clarice to come in and join the team. And although I think Senator Ruth Martin kind of wants her for her skills, everybody else thinks she's just there for kind of like the publicity, like, you know, just to get the eyes on. Oh, it's Clarice Starling, she caught Buffalo Bill, whatever. And as she starts digging into this, you can just tell he's just like, you'll say what you'll say, what I say, when I want you to say it. I mean, he's very, very rough on her.
That's part of why it caught me off guard so much, is because he's not like just this kind of passive aggressive kind of like,
Yeah,
like the gawking that you were talking about, and you dug into it a little bit. There's probably a part of him who thinks, whether it's true or not, that if you'd have done things a little differently and got us included earlier, this never would have happened in the first place. And maybe that's where his whole "you're lucky"
mm,
angle and "I don't trust
yeah,
you" comes from, because he thinks she screwed it up and is just getting all this
yeah.
publicity. And maybe that has as much to do with why he doesn't like her as
I
anything
think so. I
else.
think he's PO'd. I think
Yeah,
because it could have pretty much launched his career even further, probably, but it didn't. It didn't.
yeah.
And but like I said, there's side effects of that. And they're showing that she has PTSD for sure. She has those flashbacks, which I give the show full credit. Thanks for the flashbacks, kind of giving people a little grounding. I know Adam, you mentioned it. You hadn't seen Silence of the Lambs yet, but I think you might go and check it out now, which is really neat. I mean, to go back and see that cinema and go back and see those performances that were just amazing. I actually watched a thing on the making of Silence of the Lambs, and they went through a lot of stuff to get that movie done, and it was very cool. And so this show, there's those little flashbacks, and it kind of shows Clarice kind of doing a little bit of profiling and using her behavioral science to try to figure out, is this a serial killer? Is it not a serial killer? They find these two females killed, but there's such a gap in the age range, and they're looking at the different like stab markings or wounds on the bodies, and she's trying to come up with an MO for this killer, and if it even is a serial killer. And it seems as Paul's just the agent in charge, he's just like, no, just say it's a serial killer and let's just get on with it. Let's get people safe, let's get this guy caught. And he's rushing the process totally. I mean, bad police work in my opinion, but whatever. Obviously they're trying to keep the public safe, but the show does a good job really showing it. The imagery, what they were showing some pretty decent close-ups, especially for like a TV show. I was like, yeah, you're pushing the bar a bit, but I was appreciative because it really puts you in the scene, in the mood.
I think not only is he trying to close the case, but he seems more concerned. I think it's a combination of not trusting Clarice, but also being really concerned with public
Yes,
perception. And it's not even just that he wants to keep people safe; he wants to prevent
right,
a panic. But like you said, she's listing off the reasons. As she digs into it, she's just like, a serial killer tends to have certain
right.
ticks, certain things they go for. And she's like, there's just not enough consistent between these victims. And she starts digging in a little further. And what they end up finding out is it's that the thing that's actually relating these victims is not like features,
Right,
or, I mean, they are all the same gender, but the fact that they're all associated with some case and that they're
right.
whistleblowers. And so it's like, okay,
So
what is
they all had
this?
children that had some kind of what do you want to call it? An ailment of some sorts. And apparently that, yeah, all these women were getting ready to talk to this woman that works for like the Herald or local paper or something, and getting ready to blow the whistle on this company, I guess, that's been maybe doing some wrong. We don't know enough about it yet, but this is the premise. And so she gets into a full. Now here's the spoilers that come in. So if you haven't seen the show, I know we hit a few of them right there. So apologies. I mean, we haven't spoiled all of it just yet. So stop now and go watch the show. But if you have already seen the show, hopefully you have by now. Basically, she gets into a decent scuffle. Her and another agent. Thank goodness they locate the woman who is working. She's the writer for the Herald, where these whistleblowers are gonna talk to her, and she's gonna write the story. They get over to her house, and the killer, or at least what we believe the killer, is in there. He's masked up. He has staged a suicide for the woman writer, and she's in the tub. She's got her wrist slit, and she's already on her way out. And luckily, man, Clarice and her other agent buddy get there just in time to help save her, and she ends up shooting him, which then she gets a flashback PTSD of shooting Bill. I mean, I know some FBI people and even officers, they never even fire their weapons their entire career. And here she has, she's been in all but of a year, maybe two tops, and she's fired her weapon and shot two people. Poor girl, a woman, it's just, whoo, watch out.
Yeah. And quite frankly too, like not just two people, but two effectively,
Killers.
if not mass murderers,
Yeah,
multiple murderers. Buffalo Bill had already kind of gone into the mass murder phase. Who knows what this guy she runs
yeah,
into here, how many of them he'd actually killed. But like, yeah, you're right. She's in the thick of it. She's and like going back to the beginning of the episode, there are hints of that throughout the entire episode that she might not quite be moved
Right,
on
right.
yet. And I think a really interesting part of that is that Catherine, the survivor of the Buffalo Bill, ends up just calling and leaving a return number and to get Clarice to call her. And there's a very interesting conversation about how basically Catherine's like, look, I don't think you're all that much different than me, and I don't think you've moved on yet because I know
Right.
I haven't.
Yeah.
So it's like,
You're
where are we
right,
going to
because
go with
Clarice, she
this?
has not. So she's been deflecting with her therapist, and he knows it totally. And in fact, so much that he
Yeah.
even called Krenler and said that she could blow up at any time, which it's possible. I mean, it looks like she's trying to hold it together most of the times, but who knows? She could be a ticking time bomb for all we know, and she may truly lose it, which would give the show some more depth too, to show a compromised Clarice versus the original Silence of the Lambs, where and Jodie Foster's, I mean, it always seemed like she had it together. And of course, now we have to kind of wonder. So we have 10 episodes that are going to be total in this season. So, Adam, we kind of mentioned briefly, like, where do you think this show might be going? Do you think it has potential?
I think it has potential. For me, the first episode it's very open. It felt like the exploration of the psychological effects were definitely interesting, but in some instances, it felt like just another cop show. And I
Yeah.
think that they laid the groundwork for some pretty interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to entirely depend on how well they execute it. There's so much crime drama out there that I think that they're really going to have to execute it well. But I do think that they've put in some interesting character interactions, a potential interesting overarching plot that if they do it just right, it could be interesting. But I'm not sure yet. I'm going to hold judgment.
I have to agree, and I want to give shows benefit of the doubt. And like I said, it was a decent, I don't even want to call it pilot, first episode, whatever. I mean, it kept your attention, and our attention, and like I said, very interesting. But you're right, if they don't hit these marks, because people and serial killers, it's very interesting. We don't get to hear a whole lot about them. I mean, they have those shows out there like to catch a killer, or I don't think it's a serial killer, but I mean, they have other shows
Right.
out there. But like I said, this is a syndicated crime drama, and I was a big fan of the old Special Victims Unit and all the crime
Right.
shows that are out there. They've been great, but they wear on you over time. It's just kind of like, okay. I mean, how many of them can you watch? I mean, it seems like every season there's another new one, and for a good cash grab, is it like, ooh, Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah.
People like that movie. Let's create a show and just base it on Clarice. I mean, you can almost see them in the round table with the little money signs popping up in their eyes. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
Right.
I hate to be so cynical, but let's face it, that's how things get made. I mean, they want to make money. So, but for the show's sake and our sake of having to watch some of it, we'll stick in and we'll see what the next episode brings. So make sure to come back out, click the like button, leave a comment if you are enjoying the show, if you enjoyed our little content and little talk here. We'll make sure to have more content. We have stuff out every Wednesday, usually doing movie reviews of other types. We're going to be looking at one called The Last Days on Mars, which is kind of like a sci-fi thriller, kind of zombie-ish movie, not so much, but kind of. Anyways, it's back a few years, but we're going to talk that in the next week or so. So make sure to come back out and visit us. And also, we'll have Walking Dead reviews and some other fun stuff coming your way. And come out and check out our Dead Nightmare series. That's on my channel, too, if you like zombie indie stuff. So, with all that said, this is Mike and Adam with the ZMAM Show. And we will catch you guys at the next review.
See you next time.